So ladies and gentlemen, let me first say in this video, there are obviously like an actual ton of things that I want to see in this new DC universe that James Gunn and Peter Safran are bringing to us, whether that's from Creature Commandos to Waller, Superman Legacy, The Authority, so on, so forth. Now these are the things that come to my mind first. Again, if I had more time, I'd probably come up with a list of 50 things, but here's 7 things that come to my mind first that are based off of and taking into account what James Gunn has already announced so far with Chapter 1, Gods and Monsters, but also, you know, adding a little bit of discussion here and there for each one, because I would love, absolutely love for you guys to get involved with each one of my points, and let me know one of your own down in the comments below, or maybe a similar list of around 7 things that first come into your mind of what you feel like has to be done in the DCU. So let's start with my number 1, and of course, you know, this is the Boba Talks channel here. We love Batman. So I wanted to talk about Batman. And again, a big part of this video for me is what's the first thing that genuinely came to my mind when I thought of, okay, James Gunn's doing Batman and The Brave and the Bold. What do I want most? So since we know we're getting the storyline of Damian Wayne in the Brave and the Bold movie, this will get us a Batman at a very interesting point in his vigilante career, which allows me to really dream up a vision for where this Bruce is at mentally and what he's learned in his career after all of these years of being a vigilante, but also after, very importantly, having several Bat family members. I mean, after all, in The Brave and the Bold, for Damian Wayne to come in, it's very understandable to assume that this Batman has had a few Bat family members, of which James Gunn has heavily teased as well, with Peter Safran saying that they've been left out of the theatrical spotlight for too long. Now, I'm not going to lean into specifically the Bat family so much with this point. It's more about Batman himself for me, other than to say that he's at least had 2 to 3 Bat family members. And of course, you could say more, but all I'm saying there is I don't expect any adaptation, so whether it's some other one or the DCU adaptation, to necessarily adapt every Robin in a chronological order. But there is one that I feel is fairly self-explanatory, so given that Bruce is likely already trained Dick Grayson, possibly Jason Todd again with the whole adaptation thing here, a Batgirl maybe, of which James Gunn has recently teased, could be Cassandra Cain, and he's had a lot of experience, this Batman, with being a flawed Batman with a Bat family. That's usually a part of the arc that Bruce goes on through recruiting more and more Bat family members. They help him grow, so where we're going to be with Batman in The Brave and the Bold is a Batman who's learned how to be the best version of himself while working with others. So of course, this leads me to my main point with this Batman. Whoever is casted as this new Batman in the Brave and the Bold movie needs to feel and pull off the demeanor of that they have this absolute kind of more or less mastery of being Batman. One who is patient, especially after all of these years of training previous Bat family members, and most importantly, tolerant of his son he never knew about, and of whom is a little murderous assassin, as James Gunn describes, that he has to help put on the straight and narrow, of which you can inevitably assume is going to be a part of the film, Bruce trying to mold Damian a bit out of his League of Assassins ways. And what I like with this potential of having such a well-rounded, expertised, wise Batman who's had this many Bat family members potentially, now his son Damian Wayne is coming in, is that it will nicely separate both Batman iterations from Matt Reeves' Elseworlds and James Gunn's DCU Batman. I mean, obviously with Reeves' Elseworlds, you have a Batman who, despite how much growth Pattinson's Batman had in that first movie, he's still an early Batman, a Batman who is still becoming. Whereas, obviously, if you have Batman in the DCU with Damian Wayne, well, it is kind of building up a well-rounded Batman that I've been describing. And don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking on Reeves' Batman. I can't wait to see that Batman's journey unfold and how he grows more, gets more expertise himself. But I'm a huge Batman fan, so I am 110% subscribed to get all I can get, right? So in the DCU, the fact that we can have a fully actualized Batman, one who has just a lot of experience, a fully fledged operation going, and a Bat family of some size built around him, Yeah, I'm really down for that as well. I just think, obviously, this is at the top of my list in order to kind of get it right, get the casting right, get the demeanor right, the execution of a Batman this far in his career. Don't have him just be really impatient. It wouldn't really make so much sense with potentially how many Bat family members he has around him. Bottom line, more or less just seeing a seasoned Bruce Wayne and Batman in his mid to late 30s will be something just really interesting to see, because this brings so many other subsequent things that I desire along with it. Now, overall, this was more about just the man Bruce Wayne will be at this part of his career in the DCU. And I could honestly miss a million other things that is a benefit of this Batman being where he's at. And obviously that's, you know, for example, going all out comic book fantastical, what that could mean for the Batcave, the Bat gadgets. Honestly, just insert your idea here. There could be a bunch of things going down that road. But most importantly to me, again, is making sure the Bruce Wayne, from the casting of him to the writing of him on screen, matches that of the Bruce Wayne of where he'd realistically and mentally be at in his psyche this far in. And James Gunn has said one of his inspirations for the new DCU is the Justice League Unlimited show, and the Batman in that animated show reflects the kind of type of seasoned Batman I envision for the DCU. Now, I do believe that Justice League Unlimited Batman is probably a little bit older from the Batman we'll be getting in this DCU movie, but still, if you've seen that and you know what I mean, that Batman he just has like a equilibrium to him in how he's been doing this for a while. There's not too many flaws to him, and he's just more or less a fully established Batman doing his thing on the daily. And so obviously, to see a Batman who's still more or less in his prime, but has more than enough experience in the DCU to reflect the prowess of him being the Dark Knight, sign me up. Okay, so number 2, and again, I don't know if I mentioned this is in no particular order of a ranking, but number 2, Swamp Thing. Swamp Thing, Swamp Thing, Swamp Thing. You guys know, or a lot of you should know, that I'm a huge fan of this character, and funnily enough, on top of me just being very excited with the prospect of a live action movie centered around the protector of the green, Swamp Thing, there's a million trillion things that I could say here, but I kind of want to make this slightly about something else with what the prospect of a Swamp Thing movie could open the doors to. So this may be a cop-out to all the fellow Swamp Thing fans out there, but this isn't actually so much about the Swamp Thing movie. So, with Swamp Thing, please, please, please allow this movie to open up the Justice League Dark Universe characters. Again, I know that Swamp Thing will likely get into all of the plot surrounding that character, perhaps go down the roots of his arch nemesis, Anton Arcane, but if they also use this movie to implement other characters, that would just be freaking-tastic. I think a lot of us have been dying to see these other characters, not just in like a TV show level, but fully done justice with a movie, a Hollywood freaking movie, cinematic universe level budget. So obviously the characters I'm talking about with any possible backdoors being opened for them are obviously John Constantine, Zatanna, you name it. This side of the DC universe in movie format, excluding, you know, the animated side or even Keanu Reeves' Constantine, it hasn't really been utilized on the big screen. And if you're doing Swamp Thing and that side of the DC universe, it's almost too hard to not allow that world to introduce other popular characters that fans would love to see. And James Gunn, the fact that he is doing a Swamp Thing movie, and I know it doesn't naturally mean, oh yeah, you gotta get John Constantine, but I have a feeling that he won't really be able to help himself, but at the very least reference characters like that and potentially tease them coming in, perhaps maybe long into Chapter 2. This could be many years away, but I really hope that this does truly become a living, breathing DC universe beyond that of the Trinity, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, and, you know, the Lanterns. Let's get into some of the other characters that fans also cherish. All right, so number 3 on my list, and, you know, I see it beautifully bullet pointed there, and I say beautifully like that because I really want this to happen. I think it has a reasonably good chance of happening, maybe not quite straight away, perhaps 5-6 years into this DCU plan, but that is none other than the frickin' Titans coming to the movie level cinematic universe stage. Now, yes, we've had Titans in animated form, or whether you want to look into Young Justice and things like that. We've had an HBO Max show called Titans that I still cover on the channel. That was an iteration of Nightwing, Starfire, Raven, Wonder Girl, you name it. But how about genuinely movie budget level Titans? Now, again, what I want to stress here is, first and foremost, one of the things that first came to my mind for this top 7 things that I want to see in James Gunn's DCU, but I don't think it's going to happen right away. But given our discussions and awareness of what the Brave and the Bold sets out to do and introduce to us with a Bat family, you have to assume, I mean, again, it's assuming, but that Dick Grayson is likely not Robin anymore. He is probably Nightwing. If you're going to Damian Wayne, that gives you some idea. Even if you want to skip over one of them, maybe like Tim Drake or whoever, and you've just had, you know, Dick Grayson, Jason Todd, and let's just say maybe a Batgirl, or just going straight to Damian Wayne, it's truly up to how the adaptation does it. You can assume that Dick Grayson has probably gone on from his Robin mantle. I'm just going to say that he probably will be, and if that is the case, and once again, not only was the DCU low-key inspired, as James Gunn said, by things like Justice League Unlimited, but also Young Justice. So even though Young Justice isn't, you know, straight up Titans, you can see the fabric of what we're working with here. The sidekicks of main heroes who have come into their own mantles for the most part, running their own superhero team. And another thing, I've mentioned this many times before in my previous DCU coverage, is that James Gunn has teased that he might be working on something Deathstroke related. So knowing that the Bat family is a thing in Brave and the Bold, it's likely that Dick Grayson is Nightwing. I wouldn't be surprised if there's going to be a, and don't forget that Deathstroke is a Titans villain first and foremost, not a Batman villain. There could be some kind of thing going on there. And once again, I don't expect that in year 2, 3, or 4, or 5 even. This could be a chapter 2 project well after Brave and the Bold. If you look at the lineup, sure, maybe not everything that James Gunn revealed in order will come out in that order, but for now, I guess we can assume that it will. You know, the Titans could be a long, long ways off. But the possibilities this could introduce for heroes like maybe Roy Harper, Wally West, or other characters is limitless. And James Gunn did say you're entering a DC universe, a world where superheroes have existed and still exist. So, you know, we're picking up with the ball rolling here in this universe. Think about Batman. He's on to Damian Wayne already. So think about where other things could be at the same time. And Titans could be coming fairly soon, but maybe during chapter 2, and I really want that. So number 4 on the list is to do with the Lanterns, but more what James Gunn teased and, you know, what I've envisioned for this universe out of my own little selfish fan desires. But at the same time, I don't know how to comment on this one too much, because, for example, the DC Universe might not be as formulaically approached as the MCU was, for example, with Thanos being teased here and there and whatnot, and there being a big bad, and now we've, you know, done the Infinity Saga, we're moving on to Kang and the threat that he's going to have over the next several years. So with the DCU, is it outlandish to assume that there will be a big bad somewhere lurking? It doesn't have to happen right away. Again, the MCU didn't approach it like that at all. In fact, it took multiple years to actually get more and more significant teasers for that of Thanos coming. Up until then, you had Loki coming into New York during Avengers and whatnot, but again, sure, like behind the curtain, there were other things going on, but you more or less had indirect references to something that brought all of these separate movies and characters and heroes to form a team up to one day, you know, be Infinity War and Avengers Endgame. So in a similar way, and I've always honed in on this ever since James Gunn has said it, it would be pretty cool if the Lanterns show is the first time we get any kind of clue for something bigger that the DCU will approach. And now, again, to stress, I don't think in the first few projects at all. So like Creature Commandos, Waller, Superman Legacy, The Authority, I think everything should focus on being what it is and really making this content rich and just focusing on the characters of each separate movie or series. I think that is what you really need to focus on initially. But whether it's a bigger clue or not, it doesn't really matter. But any kind of small semblance of a clue of something else else going on that eventually, you know, they're going to need to take a second look at. In James Gunn's Chapter 1 announcement video, he said that the Lantern series would be a true detective-esque show, you know, space cops watching over Precinct Earth. But he also says in it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into their larger story of the DCU. Now, I may be looking too deep into that. Even if I am, this is a list of things that I want, right? So on top of, once again, being excited for many things of a true detective space cop watching over Precinct Earth with Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart TV series, there's a lot of things to look forward to there. I'm honing in on this one, and that is, in it, they discover a terrifying mystery that ties into just their overall larger story, not just the Lantern story, but, you know, the DCU's overall larger story. Now, what is that terrifying mystery? And the way he labeled that meant that it wasn't self-contained or will be resolved in the Lantern's show. It literally ties into the larger story of the DCU. So that tells me the Lantern show could be the very first small little tiny teeny peek at whatever that threat could be. Now, before anyone asks me, who do you think that is it Brainiac? Is it the Anti-Monitor? Is it something, you know, God knows what, peeking behind a cloud or a freaking galaxy in space? I don't know. We're obviously going to have to wait to see what that could be. But basically, for number 4, I really want something to be teased, even if it's so ambiguous that fans are wondering, wait, could that have been Brainiac? Wait, could that have been this person? Or, but I can see how it could be Brainiac, but it could be this person. That kind of vibe going on that, again, ties into the larger story of the DCU, and we might not hear about it again for a while, but obviously, it's something we can follow for years to come and projects to come. Now, number 5, just 2 more to go after this, and this one had to be on this list, and I wonder if any of you can guess it, and that is none other than, I'm sorry, I need the Green Arrow. I need the Green Arrow in live action, more than just the CW show. I want, it's kind of my answer for a lot of things, a cinematic movie universe level budget Green Arrow movie. Now, I honestly don't know how lucky I'm going to get with this one, because I know James Gunn is a big fan of the Green Arrow. Yes, I know that he was kind of, you know, there was little jokes in Peacemaker about Green Arrow, so within the DCEU, he's kind of out there somewhere, and, you know, arguably James Gunn, especially being such a big fan, could bring him in. And obviously, there's no projects right now revealed to be Green Arrow in the Chapter 1 list that we've got so far. But the reason why I want Oliver Queen, it really does speak for itself. First and foremost, I am a huge fan of vigilantes. Just vigilantes in the DC universe or MCU, to be honest. I always admire humans who push their limits to become, you know, a part of a team like the Avengers or even that of, you know, the Justice League without having any metahuman powers like into that of Superman or Wonder Woman or the Flash, right? Batman is just so interesting that way. Whether that's Hawkeye, freaking Oliver Queen, there's so many vigilantes out there. Nightwing, the Robins, it goes on and on and on and on. I love them. But Oliver Queen wielding a freaking bow and arrow, imagine a really well done and adapted new vigilante on the silver screen. Now again, with the fact that we haven't had any remote clue to that coming, it could be coming way later in Chapter 2. This could honestly be like 6 or 7 plus years away, and that's if they even do Oliver Queen. But I am slightly concerned that we might not get this, and call this an outlandish reason, and it is just a really weird, wacky theory that I've got. I've always wondered if they stay away from other characters like this, and what I mean by like this is, okay, you know, very rich, billionaire plus playboy-esque, and it doesn't always have to be adapted that way with Oliver Queen or even Bruce Wayne, but just to put it simply, you know, vigilante who goes out, fights crime, uses their wealth and whatnot. So on paper there, even though they have different fighting styles, Oliver Queen uses a bow and arrow, and yes, he can use hand-to-hand combat, but you get my point, right? There's still 2 normal dudes, normal blokes, but they're not really normal, but you get my point, who are rich, and they're vigilantes, and I've always had a bit of a theory that maybe they might worry that putting 2 human vigilantes on screen, both of whom are rich, they might just not differentiate themselves enough from each other. And I know that sounds weird to us comic book fans, because we're like, well, no, Bruce Wayne and Oliver Queen just aren't the same character, but I've always felt like this might be a reason why you might not have Bruce Wayne in a cinematic universe at the same time as Oliver Queen. Maybe they're worried about how it looks to the general consumers who might go see the movie and just, you know, don't know so much about the characters and might just be like, oh, you know, there's Bruce Wayne, he's rich, he's a vigilante. Oh, there's Oliver Queen. Why aren't they kind of doing the same thing? You know, how do their characters really separate, even though we know they're completely different characters? Maybe it's hard to execute two vigilantes at a similar age, similar-esque stuff going on at the same time. And I hope that's not the case, because I really do feel like you can have them both on the screen at the same time and make them pretty damn different. I mean, you see it all the time in the comics, you see it in animated mediums, you name it. But we've not seen it on the big screen, and regardless of my little weird theory there, and I hope that's not true, I hope that James Gunn finally brings Oliver Queen to the silver screen. All right, so number 6 is one that probably is like, do you really need to say this? And most people probably want the same thing, and that is a Superman that displays the true marks of a classic Superman, but obviously mixed in with a modern approach. So it's quite easy for me to say, right? But how can we truly get a Superman that everyone appreciates? I understand that that last part of the statement there is a bit odd, because no matter what, you're always going to get people saying like, no, Man of Steel was so much better, or like this was better, and why did they do this? That's always going to be the case. But if we had to like really strive for something that could tick most people's boxes, how can that be accomplished? Now, unfortunately, I don't have the be-all and end-all solution here. And obviously, when I say classical, I don't mean literally doing the equivalent of ripping Christopher Reeve out of the 1978 Superman movie and injecting it into a 2025 Superman movie. Nor, to be honest, do I think everyone wants a straight-up classic Superman, right? But I definitely think at the same time I would want this Superman to almost mimic at points the near cheesy-esque moments from previous iterations, perhaps while in reporter mode, or without going full send into that, so having the goofy Clark, and you know, even James Gunn has said that he's a big old galoot and whatnot. So I do think we're gonna get the shining traits of Superman blended into Superman Legacy. Some of those other ones, of course, being making him bright, hopeful, optimistic, all of those, you know, typical Superman isms, if you will. And while that has, I do want to stress this, that has been portrayed in each and every version we've seen on the screen, some have leaned into it with different lenses, of course. And James Gunn even described Superman himself recently as I just mentioned a second ago, he's a big old galoot. He is a farm boy from Kansas who is very idealistic. His greatest weakness is that he'll never kill anybody and doesn't want to hurt a living soul. And I like that sort of innate goodness about Superman as his defining characteristic. So with that being said, this Superman Legacy movie should really, I mean, I think this is obviously what they're going to try and do, strive for a quintessential as can be Superman. And I think most people realize that to convince fans of this new universe, James Gunn really needs to nail this one by the time it hits the screen. Now, there are several ways I think you can also help aid, bring, or marry a classic with a modern Superman. One obvious way of doing this would be to give the iconic suit a classical yet modern feel, and, you know, I do think the suit will be relatively modern. There are things out there, such as Superman and Lois, and where they showed some flashbacks, yet it's a modern-day production with Tyler Hoechlin playing Superman, but when they were in those flashbacks, it showed his classic suit made by his mother, and that was really cool because, again, it was this modern production showing a classic suit. But what I will say is, no matter how many people say this is the perfect suit, there's a part of me that thinks no matter what, if they had that Superman and Lois classic Tyler Hoechlin flashback suit on the movie screen, no matter how many people say this is amazing, it's better than any other Superman suit we've got, that would be mocked quite a bit for a movie level suit. To me, the classic suit here as well, and I agree, obviously stands out as a bit too classical in this modern show. But hold your horses there to any of you who are just like, oh, Boba, do you not like it? What's wrong with you? How do you not like this classic? I do, but what I'm saying is, as per in this show, Tyler Hoechlin's Superman and Clark Kent upgraded his suit along the way into the modern day, and it got the modern approach to crafting a suit. So that's not to say in this new movie, Superman Legacy, that the classic Superman suit can't still be utilized in design with the new Superman. It's just perhaps, instead of the more pajama-esque look, keep some of the iconic aspects to that suit in design, but maybe instead of having the very thin fabric like my hoodie here on the suit, maybe add the little textures like modern day superhero suits do. Obviously, a lot of people would be like, I don't want loads of lines, too many lines in modern day superhero suits, whatever, right? But I'm just saying you can have a blend of the classical married with the modern. No matter what, again, if they brought that, let's just say Superman and Lois flashback suit to that of Superman Legacy's, you know, actual suit in the movie. Yes, I know people will like it. Even I will like it, but I still would have thought, I don't know though, you could have still done something different with the textures, even if you maintained the emblem being classic, the cape, maybe an emblem on the cape. Another way I think you can do this is, I'm a big fan of superhero suits, obviously, but not so much of a fan of armored suits, you know, actual pauldrons being on things. Every now and again, I don't mind if it fits well. So like the Batman's got quite a bit of armoring there, but then he's kind of got these cargo pants, a leather-esque looking cowl, or, you know, there's other superheroes out there. And I think Ben Affleck's BVS suit is a perfect example of this, where you do have that clothing looking fabric, but, you know, again, I don't want pajamas here on this new Superman Legacy, so the texture is nice, but you can still tell that it's fabric like this on top of something. So my preference for armor is underneath the clothing, if that makes sense. If you're going to do armor, especially for Superman, instead of doing that modern superhero approach where a lot of DCEU suits have done this, you have literally like ripped abs, you know, popping out the suit almost sometimes. If they, you know, really provide that protection underneath the material of the suit, I feel like that will give it a much more classic comic book design, rather than making it look like a piece of Roman armor where you literally have abs popping out, like, I don't know, extruding 10 inches. I mean, that's an exaggeration, but again, I think maybe tackling it that way will just help aid the classical yet married modern look. I'm sure a lot of fans would also say maybe the implementation of trunks on the Superman Legacy suit would help achieve a classic yet married with modern look to Superman. Obviously not being too classical, again, with the pajamas analogy of the actual suit itself. I don't really want that, so add some textures on there, but yet still keeping it classical. Yet with the trunks, you can add those on there, or while they are deemed mostly classical, you definitely could add them in there with a modern approach. Now, believe it or not, it's not my preference. I do actually appreciate a belt with quite a bit of color, maybe, to make that distinction between the top and the bottom of the suit feel separated. However, I wouldn't be... Obviously, I don't hate trunks. I actually do like them. They're just not my preference. But of course, you could, you know, bring these in a way that, once again, doesn't look like pajama-y kind of underwear, but looks modern somehow, which I think would be a teeny bit of a challenge whenever you're bringing trunks in, or, you know, Y-front underwear kind of things going on, but it can be done. And another critical aspect, you know, other than, you know, of course, characteristics and everything they're going to do in the story, but another critical aspect to kind of, you know, help the subconscious absorb the classic yet modern Superman feel that James Gunn could bring to us, is to give Superman a theme that lives up to previous Superman themes, whether it's Donner's or the fantastic Man of Steel theme, but blended together. Now, I'm not literally saying those themes blended together, but again, marry what puts the classic into classic Superman and the modern into modern Superman. So I feel like a perfect example of this is Michael Giacchino's score for Matt Reeves' The Batman. For example, in the track, I believe it's called Bat in the Rafters, so when Robert Pattinson's Batman bursts through and there's all those Riddler goons there, and it's straight up like, boom, 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 boom. You know, when all of that's happening, there's a lot of those deep beats, but every now and again there's that kind of classical Adam West type trumpet, boop, 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 you know, happening. And it's, again, the key word I'm using here is marrying the old with the new. And if you know what I mean by that track, or maybe many other tracks in the Batman score, you will see how he perfectly weaves together classic, almost cheesy Batman scores with the modern cinematic thump to what is needed in that of an action scene, or even in some of the chill tracks like the Batman, where you have a bit more of an orchestral sound to it. There's a lot of the classic in there, and I feel like they could really help nail that, you know, Superman feeling that we need in this movie. All things like this can really help galvanize a movie with a feel that offers something new without forgetting its roots. And let's not forget how critical sound is to a movie, and I really mean that. It's something that I think a lot of us take for granted sometimes, because just cut out all the sound and score from a movie and keep the dialogue in, the movement of the suit noises and stuff like that, the whole mood of a scene can completely change. But another thing I think that is really going to hugely help each DCU movie adapt the most important things that you need to when bringing any character to fruition in each separate project is that James Gunn did say that it's not the Gunverse. It's got all of these different feels from all of these different stories. That's what makes it so fun. The stories are completely different, and each has the individual expression of the writers and the director that are making those projects. So not every single DCU movie needs to worry about, okay, this needs to feel like it actually is in the same tone, cinematography, everything you can imagine that represents a shared universe. But the benefit of the DCU that they're kind of bragging about is that no matter what, yes, it's a shared universe, but it's not going to feel like the Gunverse, like each movie being the exact same. So again, this really aids bringing Superman to the big screen, because with no worries about adhering to all of this other stuff, all of these other projects going on, think about how the way the Superman movie could feel, how golden Metropolis could look, all of that. All of it could be executed with no limits or having to worry about just, again, adhering to the tone or whatever with other DCU movies. It can just go full send on Metropolis, Superman, everything. And lastly, for number 7, this one is interesting, and I take this one into account given that James Gunn did say, as we've already read out, we're coming into a world where superheroes exist and have existed. We know that Batman is quite a ways in. He's not an old man or anything like that. Probably not even Ben Affleck's Batman age, but he's been around to get to the point of Damian Wayne. Think about what that means for this world. Think about what heroes could have already been running around out there for how long. I mean, obviously Batman's been going around for a minute. Superman is active. This isn't an origin story, as it's been said. So what am I getting to here? Well, number 7, the final one, again, in no particular order, is a Justice League that are already familiar with each other. This is what I mean when I say over and over and over again with how the DCU, the new DCU, is hitting the ground running with this universe. And so in turn, this Superman, albeit supposedly in those younger years, even though I do think it's important to note that James Gunn did recently clarify on Twitter about Superman's age, that all I ever said was that Superman was younger than his 40s. So that could honestly mean any age in his 30s. But regardless, we're not doing the typical new universe, oh, here's this character, solo movie, oh, here's that character, solo movie, oh, here's this character, solo movie, oh, then team-up film. It's not exactly going to be as formulaic as that. We're getting living, breathing characters, and we don't necessarily need rehashes of origins for the most popular characters. Of course, we'll get that for other characters along the way of whom we haven't seen on the big screen before, like Booster Gold. There could be a perfectly self-contained origin story like into that of Shola Marduenia's DCEU Blue Beetle film. Doesn't really connect to anything else, and it's just a origin story. I understand why. We haven't seen a bunch of Blue Beetles before on the screen like we have with Batman and Superman origin stories. So with Batman, as we've gone over a bunch, we're already starting with him at least 10 years into his vigilante career, having a Bat family around him, all of that. So with the Justice League, I'm not necessarily saying there's going to be a fully fledged formed Justice League, but I wouldn't be surprised if recruiting happens in the years that we'll watch these projects unfold on the screen. However, with that already being said, I would like there to be a league of sorts, if you will, even if it's just the Trinity to begin with, having formed a league, but it might just be mostly them for now, Batman, Superman, Wonder Woman, just kind of looking to recruit as the new DCU unfolds. I think this could be kind of likely given how long Batman has been around, and for a hot minute, considering Damian Wayne is coming into the story and what we've covered with that. We know that Superman has been active and out there, albeit might not have tackled the biggest villains in his gallery. And as for Diana, well, I feel like it's fairly likely she's been active out there in the world doing her thing for quite a while. So I don't think there's going to be the whole initiation of the Justice League moment, so to speak. But that doesn't mean it'll be fully fledged either. So ultimately, I mean, fair enough if I'm wrong and it's like, oh, we're the Justice League moment. This is the first time we're getting the chairs out. But if there isn't, again, I wouldn't be surprised if they already know each other a little bit. They haven't got a whole big ass round table with like X amount of chairs around there, but they're not against that at all. It's just we're hitting the ground running. As we've said, there's heroes out there. They have existed and they do exist, but it's just about seeing that grow. But we don't need to necessarily start from chair number 1. Hi, my name's Bruce. Hi, my name's Diana. Oh, do you want to start a league? We don't necessarily need to do that, and I wouldn't be surprised if James Gunn and Peter Safran's plans have already incorporated some kind of relationship between certain Justice League characters, and I would like that. But anyway, guys, that was a long video talking about the 7 things and subsequent many other things that I want to see in the DC universe. So again, those are just the first things that kind of come to my mind right now as of when making this. I am pretty sure I'm fairly capable of making another one of these videos with an additional 7 things and whatnot as the weeks and months unfold. So actually, let me know if you want to see more like this or any similar kinds of videos. But most interestingly, let me know what you thought of all of my points. Let me know if you agree with them. Let me know if you disagree with them. But also let me know if you're kind of in the middle, or if you do agree, how you might expand upon that, saying, hey, Boba, you know, I like what you said there, but how about this? Can't wait to read your responses. Can't wait to see your own top kind of wants. By the way, guys, I'm going to love you and leave you now. Please like the video. Do consider subscribing. Turn that notification bell on. But thank you so much for watching. Hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you people of the DCU in the next video. Goodbye.